I've been thinking about ancestors lately. I've been thinking about angels, the prayers sent to reach them. I've been thinking about olive branches, the trees they're from and where they grow.
Palestine.
I've been thinking about the mycelium and how it connects forests beneath the surface, like the nerves under our skin. I've been thinking about fear as the leaves abandon their branches to slowly become soil. Jack-o'-lantern smiles light the way to Samhain. But before we ponder All Hallows Eve, are you willing to visit a nightmare with me? I would like to introduce a fright that found me when my skull was hot and my hours were eaten by intermittent rest. Join me and meet the fever hound. If you can, close your eyes and imagine being asleep. Then awakening to your own shivers in the frigid cold. It's the dark of night, but the fractured concrete is dimly lit. The ground is icy. You are in some city alley between dumpsters. Before you fell asleep, you arranged trash bags on either side of you, an attempt to hold what heat your body gives off. As you shiver, you breathe in cold air through your nose, and you exhale heat beneath the thin and tattered shirt. You hear someone move a trash bag just a few feet away. You don't feel right. You feel like a sick child, bedridden on the pavement, helpless and weak. You feel the presence of another living thing, but it doesn't feel human. It tugs at the bag. You can hear the glass clink as the bottles move inside. It seems to be more active in its pulling, more urgent, and the ruckus of the debris inside follows that pattern. Then it stops. You can feel it notice you, looking at you. All you want is to feel warm again as you breathe under your collar and feel the air go cold shortly after it touches your skin. You open your eyes to see what's staring at you. Through wisps of steam that rise from your breath between you, it's some mangy, matted hound, this dark pelt, injured wolf. It gets so close that you can feel its breath on your cheek. You can smell the tooth rot in the air. You can tell his fur is patchy. Scar tissue mangles the way that it grows. You can see scabs on his front legs. He's filthy, fur matted by dirt and dried blood. Though your eyes have wandered to investigate this creature, his have not. You know this because when your glance returns, his eyes are locked onto yours, through yours. His snout is less than an inch from your face, but his eyes feel closer, like they're already inside you. Eyes like looking into a mirror, so much deeper beyond its surface. His chilled, wet nose makes contact with your own. You know he's hungry. You feel an urgent drive deep within him. He is hunger. He's ugly. A trash-eating mutt, desperate to persist. An eyesore of a creature, some unlovable wretch that you would have shooed away when times were better. You may have even hoped it finally died alone in some dim alley like this one, just so you wouldn't be bothered to see it again. But his eyes are intensely fixed, unblinking, as he stares into you, breaching your mind the way roots breach soil as they take root. You can almost feel his breath inside your skull, like he can smell your thoughts. There's no way to lie to him. You can't protect your image with rationalizations. You can't fool him with comforting claims that aren't true. He watches your thoughts of disgust and judgment of him, thoughts of vulnerability, of uncertainty, of yearning. When he speaks to you, it feels like 1,000 voices braided together, thrumming throughout every cell in your body. His voice doesn't have to be loud, to boom like it echoes through your bones, to flood across the surface of your skin, to tug at the fibers of your muscles. in 1,000 tiny places. Look at you. Just another dying animal. Didn't you tell yourself that you were so far above me? Did you not avert your eyes when you saw me scavenging through garbage for my next meal? You lacked the courage to even see the hunger displayed on my ribs. Well, how will your civility help you now? Will your excuses for superiority rescue you? Will your knowledge? Will all the creative talents you pride yourself for do anything to prevent hypothermia? Will your ideology, that one that makes you right and others wrong, will that fill your starving belly? How warm will your accomplishments keep you? Can you eat the title of your career for sustenance? Everything you've embraced into this identity of yours, every single one of these lifelong investments to your ego, every narrative that placed you more highly than we four-legged creatures, crumble now. Where's your religion now? None of it makes you any more than any other animal about to starve or freeze to death. He stopped speaking, and you can feel it, can't you? The urge to argue, to pretend your story matters more than a grilled chicken sandwich, that your life amounts to some portion of a divine plot, that your life is a meaningful novel you author with your decisions. But you know that this ugly, wounded dog sees right through these masks that disguise purposelessness. You want to extract meaning from your experience in a rage, like angrily plucking the fruit from a tree and squeezing the juice from it. You want to proclaim the pulp that sticks to your palm as evidence of value. But the fever hound knows the scales, and that you weigh equally. His voice again lifts like a crescendo of voices, pulsating through your being with low vibrations. They're going to let you die. They could save you. They could shelter you. They could feed you. But you don't have enough coin. They're going to let you die, despite every effort put forth from your life. You are no better than me or any other animal who's ever been reclaimed by death. In fact, you aren't even any different. And as you stare into his reflective eyes, it becomes clear. The genes of animals are not sculpted by gods. They are shaped by the traumas of circumstances and events. Come back. Notice the temperature of the air on your skin. Look around at wherever you are, how light casts shadows in this moment. It's been difficult to relate to fear for thrills lately. We celebrated All Hallows' Eve, dressing in expressive elegance and reveling the children with ghoulish garments and skeleton aesthetic. But we've seen the inside of a child's skull this year. We've seen children so malnourished, their skeletal shape is thinly wrapped in skin. Is each one of them evidence that the fever hound is right?
Palestine.
Where the olive trees grow, fertilized by blood cast upon the soil. Where many prayers fell upon the roots because they never reached the sky. Had these wishes for guardians of divinity echoed in the air above clouds, do you think God would be haunted by the prayers? Would he feel the woes of wailing mothers, begging to send protectors to secure their families against their colonizers? And if he were there to grant intervention, what would angels even do? Would they assail the drones in the sky? Breach the hulls of fighter jets with swords and spears? Would their feathered wings be left in the wake of fumes from jet engines? Maybe all the angels would be able to do is help pull the limp bodies from the rubble in search of survivors, just like the rest of us wingless, fragile humans. What if angels prayed? What would they say to God? If they were truly handcrafted to be the guardians of the innocent, to soar down with rays of sunlight and resist abuse, their compassion would be all but pulling them to the earth. They'd have an obsession with the disparity of agency. They'd feel it like a craving need, the way we feel hunger, compulsions to shelter young souls from brutal crimes. I imagine it would be agonizing to witness people burn alive in refugee tents outside of bomb-damaged hospitals. I bet angels would be on the brink of turning their back on God and his plans that somehow involve centuries of cruelty, butchering children he claims to love. As I rest my wounded mind, I picture the pillow beneath as a forest floor. I imagine the mycelium wrapping my brain, intertwining with my synapses. And I swear I can hear the memories of nature and all of humanity's myth. These stories told for generations to share wisdom and laughter, to try to find meaning in this overwhelming world. And it's here, in the imagination of those who came before me, that I can hear the angels speak to God. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather here before you today to tell you, in no uncertain terms, we have lost patience with the mysterious ways of your plan. We are here to encourage you, to be the father you claim to be, in duty and in the action it requires. We come to hold you to the standard you profess of yourself, and if you refuse to be held to that standard, we wish to express our departure from you. We have shed too many hurt and angry tears. The rains of our sadness should do more than carry our well wishes down the Jordan to the sea, and water the olive trees with the silent indignation that falls from our eyes as we weep for the people of this earth to be protected and nurtured. Our desire for peace has nourished the root and grown to the tip of each branch. Ironic now is the olive branch to you is a symbol of redemption and apology for genocide. It was a promise of peace, carried to Noah by white wings after you drowned the world and blamed humans for your actions. Well, here's your chance to honor your vow. Dear Lord, we are those white wings now, so listen when we beseech you. End this genocide. You want us to believe you unconditionally love your children? Here's your chance to prove it. Let us remind you the purpose of fatherhood. Fathers are intended to cradle their babies, to wrap them in the warmth of loving embrace. Fathers are supposed to assure their children, not only in word but action, that no harm will be allowed to encroach upon the peace he creates for them. Fathers have a responsibility to provide for their children. Fathers are supposed to be an exemplar of strength of character and integrity, who live as a lantern that lights the path for their sons and daughters with wise and heartful actions, to choose courage when their compassion compels them to. Fathers are supposed to be gentle with their children, not absent from them. So where the fuck have you been? We feel very strongly that you have failed to meet these standards for centuries, and we have no intention of waiting another. Know that we are on the brink of rejection of your fatherhood. If you continue this pattern of aberrant neglect, do not dare claim to be a father. You who watches wives become widows without concern, you who will witness children be orphaned and dismembered by explosives and still do nothing. Your inaction disgraces the mercy and valor of fathers. So, Lord, hear this prayer. Or keep the terminology of fatherhood out of your mouth and rip it out of your scriptures, because any association with you would make the word rotten. If you don't care to protect your so-called children, then we'll rise to the task against you. So God, hear this prayer, or stay the fuck out of our way. But when I open my eyes, the chorus fades. The sense of being entwined with a collective fractures. The idea of being a part of nature feels so distant. I'm not on the forest floor. I'm on a bed inside a structure that holds me above the ground. And maybe there is no God to hear such prayers. Maybe there aren't winged protectors turned revolutionaries. Maybe I'm just in my head again, just wishing the world were a safer place. Or maybe my imagination is the fever hound within me, yanking at the trash bags, desperate to find a meal of hope within the plastic when it rips. I feel my mind is starving for it. When the fever hound told me that we are no different, perhaps he meant we are literally the same creature. His thoughts were in my head, not out of some soul-bound telepathic communication, no, but because his tired mind is mine. He lives within the same synapses I do. We share the same survivalist heart that pounds the willpower to live through our veins. I can feel it in times of danger, the fever hound raging in adrenaline. So was it me who gave that part of me an ugly image of a wounded, starving mutt? Did I want my anger, resentment, savagery to starve to death, so that the only traits within me are the ones more pleasing to my sense of pride? Perhaps it was I who cast the fever hound out into distinction, who deprived it of sustenance. Could it be that I wanted famine to cure the bitterness within my instinct? Perhaps I should open the gates, let it through the door, muddy paws and all, to let it sit at the table welcome for the first time, so we can share a banquet, where there is enough, where he can eat until he's full, where he's not shooed away for differing from the aesthetic of silverware, ornate placemats, and gold-rimmed wine glasses beneath chandelier light. Maybe he should be welcome to sit there, just as he is, dirty, matted, scabbed, and still be offered love and shelter. He deserves to hear my apology, that it was I who would have let him starve to death for not having coin, the currency I wanted to see him as worthy of being fed, was all the emotions I consider positive, beautiful, worthy of spiritual praise. Since he didn't have those, I wanted him, in all his dark survivalist grit, to starve to death, so I could be free of this animal whose claws and fangs lurk deep within my psyche, so I could tell myself my heart is less ugly. So fever hound, as I load your plate with overdue meals, please hear my apology. I'm sorry. I saw your ugliness as a threat to my lovability, but that was wrong of me. It was my responsibility to understand you, to honor these emotions I call negative, for the role they play in asserting boundaries, for scrutinizing injustice, for keeping me the fuck alive in every situation with an unrelenting tenacity to take another breath. You deserved my love and tenderness for years, and I withheld it from you, It was my responsibility to share the light with you. Instead, I cast you into the shadows in hopes I'd never see you again. And I'm sorry. You were here, sharing our mind, because what you are was needed throughout the lineage that led to the binding of all my double helices. You are the survivalist that pulled my ancestors through the harsh conditions of this world. And for as long as there are harsh conditions on this earth, you are welcome here. I will, from this day forward, brush your pelt, pick the scabs from your wounded flesh and rub ointment on them. I'll rinse the dirt from you as we bridge the gap I put between us. I will live this apology in these nurturing routines, and in time you will know, without a doubt, that I am sorry. You, fever hound, probably have a million faces. All these traits that I sorted into you, as an attempt to rid me of them, exist in all my ancestors. Every one of them. I bet someone in my lineage, more loving and understanding than myself, interpreted you as weeds in a garden. She perhaps saw you as a series of thoughts that sprout up, choking the herbs and flowers with thoughts of anger and sorrow. She would know that the weeds aren't hateful or evil, merely that they obsess to thrive to an extent harmful to the other plants if allowed to overgrow. She would tenderly place the seeds of joy, love, courage, and all traits she admires into the soil with intention. She would protect the land and nourish the soil, knowing that the environment must be healthy for those seeds to grow into healthy plants. She would remove the weeds without rage, but a calling to honor her garden and the flowers she wants to bloom in their vivid colors. I've always cherished those tender hands, who care for the plants with dirt caked between their nails, those gentle eyes, who see the suffering of strays and feed them, those benevolent minds, who seek the causality of every heartache, to better understand all living things that they share this planet with. These wounded lovers who dare to have the courage to live with an open heart. It is they who are devoted to mending wounds they did not inflict. Those who offer their time and knowledge in somatic arts freely. I cannot imagine, nor would I want to, how much colder the air would feel in this world if it weren't for the warmth of healers. And yet, I have grievances, and I want to hold you to a higher standard. All you healers, you gentle spirits I've honored so dearly, I see the way you ignite the wick of your soul to be a candle, bringing light into someone else's nightmare. You help to chase away these haunting shadows of trauma. I've held so much respect for all of you. In your mercy, your love, your sacrifice and courage and drive. So why is it that I have to scream at you, so that you'll hear me when I tell you cleaning up after tragedy is a far worse strategy than preventing it? Healers, you have enemies. Those who put into place policies that deprive people of dignity, agency, and survival needs are actively traumatizing thousands. Don't merely tend to wounds. Do what you can to prevent them from being inflicted in the first place. You want to wrap your fingers around hands, seclude in safe circles and sway together, ohm in unison until the session ends in namaste valedictions. You refute the thought of having enemies because you want to pretend that there's some somatic verse that transcends cruelty, that once you resonate loud enough, all bigotry will be wrapped in love, so in tune with the threads of the double helices that violence will cease to exist. I love this idea. I do. But mother bears don't protect their cubs with yoga and a journal. They do it with teeth and claws. And I can't help but to think that the prayers of our grandchildren would be this: don't lose your claws. We needed people with intense compassion to have them. Those voices, carrying back through time from mouths not yet born, would be telling us, not in whispers but bellows, there is no such thing as pacifism within oppression. To comply with the bloodied laws of structural violence is to aid in the brutality of them. Look around you. Against your will, blood is being put onto your hands. You have to choose. Will those scarred palms be stained by the deaths of the oppressed or their oppressors? Let's hear these prayers. Act on them. Let us be the angels who God failed to make. Wingless and vulnerable, fragile to bombs and bullets, yet unrelenting against a sea of them. Pistols held to our scalps from all sides like halos. Let us be the ones to brave it, so our children and grandchildren aren't damned into having to. May we accept responsibility to be the stewards of the land, the society. Let us place the seeds of protection, community, nurture for all into the soil with intent. To water them with care, to defend them like thorns as they root, so that future generations are born into the shade of them. Let us, with our actions, so thoroughly answer prayers for justice that our posterity never needs to utter them in the stress of some desperate, restless night. Let's prove to them that we actually cared what the world would become. This is what it means to be a good ancestor. The kind of ancestor those who come after us will be proud of, like those angels of old who developed the Underground Railroad, as well as those abolitionists who murdered slave owners to liberate their fellow man, like those who demanded dignity and justice for all at Haymarket, those ancestors who hid human beings from the Gestapo and risked their lives every day to feed them. Let us be them, these angels, like the metro workers on strike, who ran their routes to get everyone where they needed to be, but refused any payment to the company. These brilliant angels who ignore patent law in their lab to create insulin and sell it on the black market for a fraction of the cost. These outlaw angels who raze weapons factories to the ground, or block weapons shipments to Israel, determined to stop the genocide.
Palestine.
Let us be these angels, and walk into the multi-billion-dollar grocery chains who pay wages so low the taxpayers make up their failure of responsibility, and, in droves, take back the dollars in the form of food that is given freely to single parents and their children. Angels who do not settle for a world that offers anything less than food, shelter, agency, and community for all. We are angels, hearts bleeding with sensitivity, the fangs and claws of the fever hound sharp and ready, armed with anything from a paintbrush to lawsuits to bayonets with the stolen sugarcane scrubbed off of them. Self-determination for all, self-ownership of all, no outgroups, no compromises, regardless of how many government mercenaries take arms against us. Those badges, uniforms, the rifles they point at us, were bought from our pockets. And if we do nothing, our tax dollars today will literally pay for the bombs that will be dropped on children tomorrow. Let's answer some motherfucking prayers.